So we're recording?
Yes, we are. We are recording.
Okay. Hello. Today we're going to be talking about our proposed code changes that we will be presenting to council end of February or end of March, beginning of April. I will go through a quick presentation of the code changes. My name is Jolie Montoya. I'm an industrial pretreatment supervisor. I am here with Steve Camp, who is the regulatory compliance manager. We will be going through these presentations. If anybody has questions, feel free to email them at pretreatment@flagstaffaz.gov. We will answer any questions, comments, concerns you have through that. So with that, I will first talk about our cross-connection code changes. So what we would like to do for the cross-connection control code changes is pretty much just reorganize the information. Right now there's a lot of redundant and vague language. We want to make sure it's clear and concise. We also are going to be adding more standards for the removal requirements section. So what is cross-connection? In a nutshell, the cross-connection control program protects the drinking water distribution system. Our section, along with the building department for the city, ensure that the correct devices are properly located on water lines. Typically, we have these on almost all the businesses and industries in town. Sometimes we have them on residential places if a hazard could be found on that particular location. And currently we have around 2,700 backflow devices within the city that we monitor and make sure are in compliance. So for what is cross connection? So cross connection is the prevention of backflow. Backflow can be caused by either back pressure or back siphonage. This illustrates a form of back siphonage that could happen in our system. If there was to be a main break and a hose was connected to a bucket full of chemicals, because the pressure in the main line is now at zero, the water that's contaminated will now be pulled into the water main and could be distributed into our drinking water system. So cross connection is trying to prevent these issues. So the changes to cross connection code. I would like to be very clear that our current program is in compliance with all the federal and state codes. We are doing everything we need to do, right? So this will just remove the vague language that's found in the current code with the language general, normally would, instead replace that with shall, will, those kinds of things. We already have language to have backflow tested before using the water, but we have seen things on construction sites such as this picture, and we are not specifically calling it out in code for construction sites. There are times when a backflow is no longer needed. Most commonly, it's found in the case of irrigation piping. So the owner or tenant would like to remove the device because the irrigation is no longer being used at the location. Our current code has language for authorization is needed for removal of a backflow preventer. It's found throughout the code, but there's actually no specifics about what the requirements are. So these proposed changes will remove that redundant language for removals and then adds in a section about how to properly abandon a backflow after authorization is given by the city. And these are the steps, just the guidelines for the removal process that's found in code. So who will this impact? Although the impact will not be significantly noticeable because the majority of the commercial and industrial businesses are regulated. These new pieces of code will the new and current installations will be held accountable to these new pieces of code. Regarding residents, if they have a class 1 or 2 fire sprinkler system, meaning they have a potable water system only with no pumps or tanks or antifreeze, there will now be an exemption for those residents that's in alignment with the state code. So what we've been doing for public outreach about these code changes, we went to Water Commission meeting on November 19th and presented this same presentation. In the January water bills, we had a message guiding people to our website for all the information. Today, we're having a public comment meeting for anybody who has concerns or questions. We also put an ad in the paper for about the changes and this meeting, and then we also have all the information on our website. And with that, are there any questions about cross connection? Is anybody here? Take that as a no. With that, we'll give you 1 second and I will bring up the next presentation. Disappearing. All right, so our next presentation will be on the code changes for the permitted industries in town. So there are many small pieces of changes in the code, not just one piece of code. The major ones we're changing are the standards for discharge, the requirements for industrial self-monitoring, our industrial user permits, and then throughout the code we're doing some general language cleanup. So the standards for discharge, otherwise known as local limits. The local limits are what our permanent industries are allowed to discharge into our sewer system. They're the maximum amount. We come to these conclusions through a study. We had a study done by Brown and Caldwell that was finished in early of 2020. They took all the data from our plants, the influent and effluent, the biosolids, took data from all the permitted industries we have in town, took all that and calculated what our plants can handle to prevent a pass-through of a contaminant or a constituent that may interfere with how a plant operates. So why are we proposing these limits? The EPA recommends that a pretreatment program every 5 years reevaluates their local limits they have in code. We usually coincide that with our Wildcat and Rio ZIPDs permits. If those are the pollution discharge elimination system permits, those are renewed every 5 years as well. So when the plants receive a new permit, we also have our local limits reevaluated so it will match what their limits are for their new permits. Our local limit study was approved by ADAQ in December of 2020, and that is what is on available. If you would like to see the whole study, we have the executive summary on the website, but if you would like to see the whole study, you can definitely email us and we can provide you with that information. So who does this impact? We have 7 permitted industries. They are all currently under the local limits in our current local limit or current code. So when the local limits will change, that their permits will change and they will now be held to those local limits that are found in the code. So a brief summary of what the changes we are proposing. The arsenic, we're getting a more stringent limit. Wildcat has a biosolids handling facility, and it was found that we needed a lower limit to be able to meet Wildcat's limits for permit limits. We are going to loosen limits for copper, lead, zinc, and bromide. That was found during the study that we could make a little more leeway in those. We're going to remove those constituents you see on your screen because they do not have any significant impact or loading on the plants. Aldrin was already prohibited in the local limit, so we just moved it to the prohibited substance code instead of calling it out specifically in a local limit. We also are planning to break up total nitrogen into its constituents. Right now in local limits, we have total nitrogen as one number. Because of how our plants operate, we would we want to know exactly what's coming into the plant for how it affects our plant's operation. So we will now have separate limits for ammonia, TKN, and then nitrate. We're also looking to put into code new limits for our BOD and TSS. We are transitioning hopefully to a pounds per day limit instead of a concentration like milligrams per liter. We are hoping that this will set the stage for when the new water rate study comes down the pipe, that we will be able to integrate that into the rates and what industries pay now instead of how the current code is set up. The new set of local limits also removes interim and BMP language. That way we have what we have for limits is what we have for limits. There's no gray areas. The proposed code changes for another significant piece is our industrial self-monitoring portion. Currently, our permitted industries are sampling in the second and fourth quarter to make sure that they get their sampling of a national standard of twice a year in. We would just like to change that to first and third quarters. It's good to get different data at different times a year, and second and fourth has been in code for a great many years, and we just want to switch it up. And if council approves this, we're hoping to implement this in the third quarter. We also changed the gravity composite sample language just to make sure it's clear of how we want those done. So for our industrial user permit section, we are adding in to allow a permitted industry to petition us to make a permit modification. This aligns our code with the pre-treatment guidelines that is found in the EPA guidance document. They will definitely need to submit documentation and data to support why they think they should have the changes done to their permit. So as in the cross-connection plan, these are the same things we've been doing for these code changes. We did Water Commission meeting on November 19th. We sent out letters, or we sent out email to all our permitted industries and had a separate meeting with them to get comments and questions and concerns, to hash all that out. We had that on January 13th. We did make a few tweaks to the code. So those updated documents can be found on our Water Services website. We're doing the public comment, a general public comment meeting today. And we also have done an ad in the paper, and information is on our Water Services website as well. Are there any questions? Anybody here still?
Sorry, I had to mute you, Lisa.
Did I leave my mic open, Steve, on? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I had to mute you.
Oh, and like I said before, if you're watching this as a recording, and have any questions or comments or concerns, feel free to email us at pretreatment@flagstaffaz.gov.
Okay, so I'm going to recommend that we stay on until at least 4:30. And then if no one comes on, then we're probably done. And at that point, I'll stop recording.
So Lisa, do we, oh. Oh, I'm gonna leave here. Okay, Lisa, do we need to stay until 5 since we advertised it till 5 or not? You're muted if you're talking. Or just 4:30. Can you hear us?
Good, we're not.
Have you received any questions or inquiries from anyone on this code change?
No.
No, just our, it's the industrial user, meeting. We had a lot of questions and comments and concerns, so but Joel.
Right.
With the SIUs, yes.
Yeah, we had a lot of people there on that one though.
Yeah, so that's the only feedback and we've gotten.
And I don't, the people with cross connection, I don't know if they'll, it doesn't really impact them a whole lot. It's just redoing some of the rewriting a little bit. And the SIUs have already been through all this. I think that's what comments in that other meeting we had.
Yeah, and that's why I want to have that one separately anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There'd actually be discussion in that one.
Okay, it's 4:30. I'm going to stop recording at this point, and Jolene, maybe you and I can stay on till 5 o'clock. And if someone does come on, we can start recording again.
Okay.